Our boy did it. He did it. Adam Etches, he learned this weekend, he learned the hard way that throwing one punch at a time, landing your jab and taking a picture, that's not a recipe for success. And Sergey Khmelnytsky, you should not, it's not wise to celebrate. It's not wise to celebrate like your Waluigi when your opponent is brutally knocked out on the ground. Jason and Simon, you guys saw Sergey Khmelnytsky again surpass probably Darnell Boone at this point in being the ultimate upsetter by knocking out another British prospect. And Eddie Hearn, he has not learned his lesson, or maybe he likes it. Maybe he really wants his fighters tested against a guy like Khmelnytsky, but he keeps sending his guys off to Khmelnytsky, and Khmelnytsky, who looks like a very large Gavin Reese, or derails his fighters. Simon, what'd you think of Jim Watt's commentary?
Yeah, that was... I think Nick made him bite his tongue quite quickly there, didn't he? Because he was... for anyone that didn't watch the fight, Etches gets caught with this like beast of a counter that knocks him down. He falls flat out on the canvas and immediately starts like almost assuming the fencing response is like his sort of head rolls over a bit and his arms start quivering. And so the ref immediately pulls his gum shield out and calls it without even giving him a count or anything. And Jim Watts like hasn't quite realised what trouble he's in and starts like trying to protest for him and
Jim,
saying that he's saying was he German now?
That wasn't. Oh, I tried.
He tries to basically say that the ref needs to give him an opportunity to stand up, and Nick's like, no, he's half dead, Jim. Like, shut up. So yeah, everyone suddenly rushes in. There's all the ring doctors jumping in, try and make sure he's okay. And then while this is happening, Khmelnytsky's like a cartoon villain to the audience, like they're all
jumping for joy.
Yeah, he was celebrating while all the docs are seeing to Etches, who's on the floor. It was cartoon style. Thankfully, he did get up a little while later and looks to be okay. But that was a learning experience for him, wasn't it? I think that Khmelnytsky's one of those people that has the fundamentals. Every fundamental they've got is maxed out, and they don't carry any extraordinary talent to make it as the top level, but they're just solid gatekeeper. And if you come in and make mistakes, they'll definitely pick up on those mistakes and punish you for them. So yeah, as you say, we saw him spoil on Buglioni a year ago, and now he's done it again with Etches.
Well,
yeah, hold on.
So Etches jumps in with his hands are completely down, and Khmelnytsky just throws a regular straight right. If you walked up to a punching bag and you just threw a right hand, it was the exact same punch you would throw.
You guys think Khmelnytsky's going to be in another Matchroom Boxing promotion anytime soon?
I reckon so, yeah.
Yep.
You think they're still going to throw prospects at him?
John Ryder's next.
Yeah, I think he's entertaining enough, definitely, to keep coming out. And you know what? If your prospects can't handle him, then it's better to find that out soon. And I think one of the things you'll see with Eddie Hearn is that he's got this stable of future elite fighters, So he's currently got Froch as one of the top level guys on the world scene. But then if you think he's got people like Luke Campbell, he's got Callum Smith coming up, he's got Anthony Joshua coming up. He's going to have a lot of elite talent, and I think if he's carrying a load of prospects that don't quite have the skills, he's very soon going to find himself in a position where he just hasn't got time for them anymore. And so we might start seeing prospects of his challenged and thrown in the deep end to see if they sink or swim, to see whether it's worth investing the time with them, because he's got the world scenes waiting for him and his stable, and he hasn't got time for dead weight.
Yeah, Khmelnytsky's a guy that you should fairly easily get around.
Hearn has one of the biggest stables out there, and like Hearn's stable it's exactly what Simon said. He's got a lot of guys that not only are they good and stuff, but he has a lot of names too, names that like bring money to the table over in the UK. But the one thing I was wondering, Simon, is why you didn't mention Lee Selby in that category. You mentioned AJ, you didn't mention Brook, you didn't mention DeGale, you mentioned Froch, but no Selby.
Playing favourites a bit, because some of the people you've just mentioned there are excellent and are going to go on to do good things. It's no secret I'm not a massive Selby fan, and I think that sooner or later he's going to come up against proper opposition and get flattened. But yeah, it's as you say, Hearn just you couldn't name everyone. It is a list that long of people he's got that are going to do great stuff. I mean, I mentioned Callum Smith, but the other Smith brothers have got some stuff going on of interest as well. There's just lots on his plate in terms of world level talent that's rising and on the way. And I think if you've got people like Etches, you want to see whether they can cut it or not. And if not, maybe you're not the right promoter for them, as your time's going to become more and more devoted to bigger and better things.
Yep. And we're not moving off British boxing, American fight fans, because Kell Brook fought last night or yesterday in the afternoon for us. Now, the question I have for you guys about Kell Brook, and we'll get into how just sensational he looked and how his leg had had no impact on his performance. But right now, the question I have for you guys is, if you had to bet your entire life savings against on another fighter beating Kell Brook at welterweight, who would you be comfortable betting that amount of money?
Floyd.
Floyd is one.
Yep.
Do we bet our life savings on Pacquiao beating Kell Brook?
It's a tough one.
It's a tough one, but
for sure, it would look on paper like it should be a very easy night's work. However, until you see Kell against someone of that caliber, you don't know whether he's going to grow on the occasion and rise to it.
I'll stick up for the Pacquiao fans and say I think Pacquiao could still get past Kell Brook at this point.
I think so too, but we're talking about a life savings bet where you'd have almost no doubt in your mind.
Right. I wouldn't make the bet, but if I had a gun to my head and I had to, I would pick Pacquiao.
Oh, no, of course, yeah. If you're saying who's it going to be, the sensible choice is Pacquiao. But if I didn't have to bet on it, and you're asking would I don't know.
No, the one bet you would make is Mayweather. You'd bet Mayweather against him. But outside of that, I think it's pretty hard to, with any level of certainty, pick against him. I want to get back to the leg thing, though. But go ahead.
The guy that probably everybody out there is wondering about is Keith Thurman. Would you bet your life savings on Keith Thurman being able to beat Kell Brook?
No, not at all. No, I think Brook could. I think Brook has a very high potential to upset Thurman.
I'd favor him in it. I wouldn't even call it an upset.
Do you guys think you're being caught up in the hype? Given that you just saw him decimate Jojo Dan 24 hours ago.
No.
No, not necessarily. Kell Brook's always, been a fighter who has shown some versatility and shown that he could go rounds, and he's always looked really good, and he's always risen to the occasion. I think, seeing what he did against Porter was really what broke him out, for me. And I think this, from a stylistic standpoint, I think Brook would be able to outpoint Thurman. Just from styles. I think Brook, am I wrong in stating Brook might have a little bit of a questionable chin, though? Has he been wobbled or down once?
He's been wobbled. I don't think he's been down, though.
It was, he touched his glove down in, I don't know, what was it, 2008 maybe? It was a long time ago.
We're still talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those ones. When people mention the suspect chin of Klitschko, and it's like, that hasn't been an issue for him for a decade. Why is this being brought up? It's not like he's consistently been buzzed and troubled. So I don't think Brook has a suspect chin any more than any other fighter. Anyone can get tagged. Anyone can go down. It's the nature of the beast. I think in terms of talking about being caught up in the hype and that sort of thing, if you have Thurman comfortably winning that fight, then I'd suggest it's you who's caught up in the hype surrounding Thurman.
I just want to let that sink in.
Well, there's something to be said for that.
People are not going to like you for that one.
Well, probably not.
Go from a records point of view. I mean, Thurman has a decent record, but I think his biggest fight to date is still Robert Guerrero, right?
Do you think? Or here's a good way to put it, because I think there are a lot of people out there who don't agree, and I think that that's a pretty close fight. But I give Brook the edge. I don't think this is by any means a clear win for either guy. However, would Kell Brook have struggled the way Thurman did? And I'm not saying that Thurman struggled, but he did not look great against Leonard Bundu. Would Kell Brook have that kind of difficulty with Bundu?
Yeah, I think so, because that's another styles matchup. That wasn't anything fault of Thurman. I don't think Bundu has a really tricky style to look good against, and I don't think that. I think you'd be putting way too much stock in anybody not looking good against Bundu. It's like somebody not looking good against Herrera. Yeah, because you don't.
I agree with that, but Bundu is not someone you want to showcase against because he's good at interrupting people's rhythm, and he is someone that can shut you down and make you look a bit amateur. That being said, though, in Thurman's last outing, the amount of damage he took on, he didn't look pretty the next day, did he?
Oh boy,
No.
I couldn't believe it. It's one of those pictures where you look at it and you're like, "Whoa, that was the winner."
Yeah, exactly. So
Frankie Gavin wouldn't have looked that way if he fought Robert Guerrero.
Mm.
I'm just kidding, guys.
I don't think it's an outrageous claim. I think Gavin would have, I don't know, been too mobile. That's always what we see with Gavin. We saw that last night as well, where he just doesn't want to get involved. So I think he probably would facially look better just because he never got into any trouble and never walked close enough for anyone to land a punch, him included.
All right, let's ride this train back to what we're talking about. What are your
You weren't
thoughts on
talking
that?
about Frankie Gavin.
Yeah, I know. What were you? A theoretical fight between Frankie Gavin and Robert Guerrero?
No, yeah. So that's what we want to talk about, right? That's
Okay,
what the people want. No. So it was really shocking that I really thought Kell Brook was going to take his time and sort of like ease himself back into the world level pace, which I think he does fight at. And we saw none of that. He immediately jumped on Dan, who looked exactly like the old Kell Brook, and that injury, it was almost like it never happened.
What about Dan?
He came out doing his game plan and immediately figured out his game plan sucked. So then he looked into his bag of tricks to see what he had in reserve and to try something different, and realized, oh no, my bag of tricks is empty. I don't
That's
have
all
any.
I have.
Yeah,
This is
there
all
is
I
no-
have. He
no
doubled
plan
down.
B here.
Yeah, he
So,
went
yeah.
he doubled down on bad plan A. Like,
So he pulled a full Bradley.
Yeah, he had nothing else to offer, and as you say, he was just out of ideas from 30 seconds into the first round, I'd say, and it only went downhill from there.
I liked I liked watching Brook. I liked seeing his change of pace as far as leading versus playing back and being the counter puncher. He would definitely assert himself, but then he'd kind of step back and then hit Jojo Dan with some good counters. I saw a lot of great things out of Brook. I wish the fight went on longer. I wish I could have seen him use his mobility a lot more. He really didn't have to be very mobile, because Jojo Dan was right there. So my immediate, because I was doing the round by round coverage, my immediate post fight thought was, darn, I wish I had gotten to see Brook actually use his legs a little bit more and actually have to be a little more defensive to get an idea of how well he's healed. I know you started it off right at the top, Angelo, saying he's fine. I don't feel that I was able to see enough from him to be that, make that assessment.
From a defensive point of view, definitely. But then the other thing I'd offer in response to that is,
Where was that power coming from?
Yes, exactly it. Kell Brook is not.
Okay.
He's not known for his power, is he? He's not a knockout artist. He's not a stoppage acquirer. He doesn't get them often. And against someone who has only lost to one person ever,
Never been stopped either.
never been stopped. And Kell Brook's got the power, and the power comes from somewhere. It's the legs. He manages to not just knock him down once and out. It was 6 knockdowns before it got stopped.
Okay, so I'll counter that. Is it because he's sitting down on his punches more because he can't be as mobile?
Yeah, possibly.
I
You see what I'm saying?
think Brook was not trying to knock him down. I don't think Brook was ever he never looked like he was swinging with his full force. It looked like he was just incidentally, through being a superior tactician there, having the better positioning, taking advantage of Jojo Den's
Recklessness.
footwork, I guess we're going to call it. He was knocking him down.
Footwork is so nice.
But
Yeah,
I get your point though. I can't confidently say that Brook has, or I don't know if it recovered is the right word, but if it had any effect on him. However, this looked pretty good.
Yeah, no, this looked good. I saw everything that I would want to see out of him. I guess what I'm saying is I wish I had been able to see more of it. And against this level of opposition and the way he dispatched him, and I think that goes to say a lot that it was from the onset, you knew these guys were in two different leagues. And how's he going to hold up when he's back in the league of his own, right?
All right, let's transition over to America. I just want to say something. Simon, you were right on the money. You said that Gary Russell Jr. had a shot at catching Gonzalez early, hurting him, and really doing damage. Now, obviously, I completely disagreed with that. I thought you were crazy. I didn't actually tell you, but I did think you were crazy. And you know who looks stupid today? Me and Jason, because we didn't really think that Russell had a chance. And Russell surprised everybody last night, and he was able to land straight punches and hooks with his little arms that we didn't think he'd be able to land on a much bigger guy. Mm-hmm. So, Simon, the floor is yours. Go ahead and gloat or do whatever you'd like. But just don't do the Sergei Komitsky Waluigi celebration, because we will boo you.
Yeah, and, I think I got as many right as I did wrong for last night's fights. There were a couple of odd results. And, in terms of what we'd seen on paper, it wasn't a guarantee that it was going to happen. It wasn't something that you'd have felt good putting money on. But I did think that there was that chance there, and obviously was right because it ended up happening. But that said as well, do you think Gonzalez looked himself last night?
No, the only point I wanted to make about this fight, it was like, what the hell was Gonzalez doing? What happened to him?
Yeah.
He did not look right.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with him. Maybe he had a bad camp. Who knows? But
he said that this was the first time he had hired a strength and conditioning coach. They didn't do their job.
Yeah, or his body wasn't ready for it or something. Who knows?
Is it old overnight? Are we being mean, and is it really just because Russell's that good? But I think part of it is, Russell obviously is that good. But even before any punches have been thrown, his approach didn't look right. The moment the first bell rung, I immediately had an eyebrow raised because he just looked, I don't know, something wasn't right.
He wasn't moved. I think it was the second time that he went down. I consider that he has some sort of lower extremity injury, like the way his legs moved. And obviously this could happen when your legs go out from underneath you, but the way his legs moved didn't look right to me. And I know I'm making an excuse, and I know I was wrong about, Gary Russell Jr. However, Gonzalez didn't look right, and I'm not going to take anything away from Russell because, Gonzalez, you made Russell look really fast last night. That guy looked blazing fast.
Well, he always looks fast. I mean, that's his thing.
But Gonzalez landed one punch in the first round. They said he threw 17, but I didn't count 17. I felt like I saw him throw 4.
I know.
Yeah, it was a bit of an odd one. And, I don't want to be that guy that's saying like, he only won because Gonzalez was off form. Not at all. I favour him, either way. It's just I'm just wanting to put on the record that something looked odd with the way that he approached it. He didn't look like himself.
Yeah, I favored Russell going in. I didn't think there would be any way that he'd get a stoppage, and I think it speaks more to possibly Gonzalez's chin than it does to Russell's power.
You know what you're really saying?
What's that?
You're really making me look like a fool because I said that we were wrong about this fight, but now you're saying that you saw Russell getting a decision, so now I'm the only one that thought Russell.
No, I said that. Yeah, go back and listen. You were the only one for Gonzalez.
I don't remember that.
I do.
And I'm probably not going to go back and listen.
Go just read your text from last night too. Pretty sure.
No, I'm not going to do that.
No, there is something to be said.
I look forward all the time.
Yeah, obviously Gary Russell Jr. is the one who's fast and is reputedly the fastest hands in boxing and whatnot. But yeah, he looked lightning. And there's something to be said for the irony when your opponent's called Gonzalez and you're the one who's speedy.
Nicely done.
I think we end on that. Yep.
Before we start, we have a lot to talk about today. So let's just jump on quickly to the Charlo fight. Good job, Gary Russell Jr., though. Really, that was a fantastic dismantling of Johnny Gonzalez. But Jermell Charlo, he edged out Martirosyan. He got a unanimous decision. And the question I have now for you guys, where do we put Charlo? Is he still a prospect? Is he a
No.
contender? Like, what level is he at? And do we know enough about him that we could say, like, yeah, he's ready for the world level. He's ready, or he's still at the domestic level. He's still a prospect. Like, where is this guy right now?
He's a little tough to place, but I'd say he got out of prospect level with what he did to Gabriel Rosado.
Are you?
You know, that's when I took
I don't
him
know.
off.
I don't
That's
know.
when I would take him off. Rosado's your typical gatekeeper. And, he went through Rosado with ease. And at that point, he had proven to me that at least he's a step above that level of fighter. He didn't necessarily bring up his level of competition until Martirosyan again.
Let me put this in, okay? So
Yeah.
just to like give like context here. So there are various levels, I think, of boxing. So we start off at the actually you start off at like just like the novice area, and those are guys they're fighting like other guys debuting or just like terrible guys. Then you get to prospect level, and then from prospect you graduate to domestic, where you're really good in your little area. And then from there you move on to the European level, which is basically like fighting those guys who are around the countries that you're from. And I think there might be like a little middle ground before we get to hit the world level where it's international level, where you can
Yeah.
compete with the
Right.
various other really good guys out there, but you're still not title contender, just right on the cusp. Then there's title contender level, which is like basically from 10 to 3, and then world level is you're competing with the top 5 in every division. Granted, what division it is, because there's some divisions where the discrepancy in talent is much bigger. So with that said, where's Charlo at right now?
I don't necessarily have a place to pinpoint him on your scale. Well, I'll tell you what I think, then you can tell me.
Sure.
But I think he's probably somewhere in the fighting the top 20 to 15, like maybe that area, the top 20 to the lower top 10. And
That's
I'd put
probably
him.
European level. What do you think, Simon?
Well, so I think that the thing that skews this one is the weight class it's in, because it's not a particularly talent-laden division. So in terms of how he did last night, do you think he looked decisive in victory? Because I had it scored a draw. I had it 95 even. And I'm not upset one way or the other. There were some close rounds, and I think that it could have gone either way. And he should be thankful that he got the UD out of it, because he could have been upset there. The thing that though works to his advantage is that it's not like it's a very talent-rich division. If you had to come up with 4 or 5 fighters that you'd be confident would beat him, that would probably be everyone that could beat him. It's not like there's 10, 20 people above him.
Right.
I think that there's only 4 or 5 names. But the problem is that those 4 or 5 names are kind of like a league above him. So you've got this situation where he's probably going to be the best of the silver medalists of the division and never able to hang with the big boys.
That's a really good point, because if we think about the top names at junior middleweight, it's Canelo, it's Lara,
Yeah.
it's Andrade,
Yeah.
and then Cornelius
Bundridge.
Bundridge.
Bundridge, yeah.
Bundridge.
No, it's not Bundridge. I think it's Cotto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The middleweight champion, Cotto.
In all seriousness, that's true though. Yeah, he would be competitive within that division. Then there's also the like Trouts and Clotties, who are probably just the step below that, where we'll find Charlo.
Yeah, and there is a big gap though between those top 4 and then
Yeah.
the rest. But that perfectly summarizes, that's the class difference between the world level and the European level. And we saw what happens when world level fights European level when Carl Froch fought George Groves.
Yep.
You
Great example.
you might need to qualify a bit more the European level naming convention for people that are probably a bit confused, because it's all American fighters you're referring to that has nothing to do with Europe.
Yeah,
Right, but he's just
that's
saying
what we're
on
going
a
to call it, guys.
more
But
like-
it's not European level.
Intercontinental level.
Yeah, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
You're fighting
That's a long
other
word.
countries, but not the world level as a
Level.
whole.
You're fighting the top that some other countries have to offer.
Mm.
That's a good way to put it.
Oh, is that why there's a WBC Intercontinental Lightweight?
Nobody really pays attention to that though. But yes, I think that's why they made that.
That's
But nobody
probably
pays
why
attention.
they have that one. Nobody cares about it, but they do have it.
Yeah. So, good job to Charlo though. He looked good at times. He
He
looked like
stuck it out in a tough fight, man. Like, Martirosyan's a tough dude who totally came to win. He was not, he wasn't going to go down easy. He gave him a really tough fight. It could have gone either way. He
Yeah.
happened to be the one who, I think
don't do it.
it's.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Okay. He got the win for whatever reason. Judging preference, whatever you want to, you know what I mean? Whatever you want to say.
It's a weird one. I don't think it's too outrageous for me to say he didn't look good in victory. I think you guys would agree that it wasn't a comfortable win.
Right, you're not going to point to this and say, "Oh, here's one of his defining career moments."
Wait,
Yeah.
we're not going to mention that Martirosyan took a little break with the headbutt and somehow came out of that just refreshed.
We'll get to that in a minute.
No, we're not. We're going to move off of this fight in like 1 minute.
All right, well, I'll
Quick,
wrap
jump
up
there
quick
now.
then.
Yeah,
So
jump there
now,
now.
what my point was just that his stock's probably weirdly enough gone up rather than down because of this fight. Because if you were a Charlo fan, you will have known that he was going to have a tough fight here, and he did. If you were someone who thought Martirosyan was going to upset him, emphatically, that didn't happen. He was very competitive throughout the fight. So if anything, some of the people that underestimated him will be like, oh, you know what, he wasn't half bad. I thought he was going to get upset. And the people that were already on his team already knew he was going to have a hard time, so they're not, their estimations haven't dropped of him. So he's probably gained a bit of stock, even though he looked a bit shaky doing it.
Just yes or no question here. Would you like to see a rematch, Jason?
No.
Simon?
Yeah, I would.
Or should we see the winner fight Julian Williams, who's going to be fighting this coming week on the Stevenson Bika undercard?
I think Williams would actually be a step backwards for either of these guys. I'd like to see them. That would be like the perfect fight for Williams. But if I'm managing Charlo's career, I would say no, don't go backwards.
Don't lose. Okay, so now that we've hinted at it, Stevenson versus Bika. This is a fight between two guys that nobody likes and somehow find themselves in these big fights all the time. And I think it's funny because to me, this is how I see this fight. Because Stevenson is so hated in the boxing world, that Sakio Bika has somehow, let's remember that Bika's this guy who throws a lot of low blows. There's a lot of headbutts and just roughhousing in his fights. This guy he's not very fluid with what he does. This guy has suddenly become like, a folk hero. Get him, Bika. We're all on Bika's side. Scorpion for life.
That just goes to show you
How terrible.
what a good job of creating like a horrible public image of Stevenson there is. You know what I mean? Stevenson's being promoted as the bad guy. If people are willing to get behind Bika, like it's like, okay, yep, I guess this promotion's working. You know what I mean? That's an effective promotional tool.
Let me ask you this question because I know I actually know how you feel about this. But because Bika's the one who's fighting Stevenson, and despite all that we know about Bika, we think that Bika has a shot at least we've somehow convinced ourselves that Bika has a shot. I mean, like, he's a former world champion. He's dropped guys before, and he's got that like rough style where he can catch somebody. Is it that we don't like Stevenson so much that we've actually convinced ourselves that Bika has a chance, or do we really, really think that Bika actually has a chance this coming Saturday?
My biggest problem. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Simon.
Who is it that thinks that Bika's competitive in this fight?
That's why I'm saying, because Jason and I were both talking before when this fight got announced, and we're like, Bika, he's got a shot. Like, he could catch Stevenson getting sloppy, and we've seen Stevenson get sloppy. Now, my thinking, though, is that, and I'm willing to admit that probably that comes from me thinking, like, Stevenson needs to get knocked out, and, he's fighting Bika. Bika's the guy. He could do it. He has fleeting moments of success in his fights where he somehow throws a wild home run punch and he lands it.
And it connects, right? Yeah. So my biggest problem is going to be the weight discrepancy. You know what I mean? If Bika was going to be coming at this thing as a natural, light heavyweight, I would be able to stand behind him a lot more. I don't know that I necessarily favor him, but I'd be able to feel a lot more comfortable with his chances. When that fight was announced, I remember the conversation, Angelo, and it was more like, oh, Bika's just rugged and awkward enough to really pose some problems. You know what I mean? That's, I think, where I landed, because he is. He's awkward, dirty, hard to fight against. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily think he'll be a walk in the park for Stevenson, but he's just going to be too small, I think, at the end of the day. He's going to be way too small.
Let me ask a series of questions that will give you an insight into where I'm coming at this fight from. So the first question is, how many victories does Bika have at light heavyweight?
He has
maybe some early career ones. Maybe, I don't know.
Like on BoxRec or in his head, because I think on BoxRec he has 0.
Okay. He's never fought at that weight class. That's right.
Yeah, he's not even listed there.
No, he's not rated at light heavyweight at all. So the next question is: in the last 12 months, how many times has he fought at super middleweight?
Let's see. In the past 12 months,
12 months?
Fought once.
Yeah.
Right. What happened?
He low blowed Durrell, and they took a point from him. And then he also lost.
Yeah, he lost to Durrell.
So we're talking
fight,
about a guy. We're talking about a guy who, in the last 12 months, has had one outing at the weight class below, and lost to not even the champion of the division. So, this is someone who's arguably maybe ranked 15, 16 in super middle. We're putting him up against the arguable number 1 at light heavy, and we're trying to convince ourselves that he might be competitive in it.
Now, let me counter you with something. You want to do all this countering? Well, I'm about to go Floyd Mayweather on you.
Okay.
So, before he fought Anthony Durrell and got deducted for the low blow, do you know who he fought? He fought Anthony Durrell, and you know what that decision was?
Yeah,
it was a draw.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? Who he fought before that? He fought Marco Antonio Paraban, the guy that gave James DeGale a ton of trouble before he got knocked out, and it was a majority decision, and he won the WBC super middleweight title. And before that, you know who his last 3 wins were? Nikola Sejloka, Dia Davis, and Alfredo Contreras.
Mm-hmm.
And then before that, he lost to Andre Ward, but like everybody loses to Ward. So what I'm trying to say here is that Bika has 4 wins that he had like a few years ago where he was on a roll.
You say a few years ago. You are talking about literally 2011.
Yeah, I am. I'm being sarcastic.
you know there's no way the odds stack up for him. Now, Bika is awkward as hell, and he has upset people before.
And he's rugged.
Yeah,
he can take a shot.
I totally agree. And we might see those flashes come up. However, Stevenson, you can say what you like, has fought some good competition over the years and come through it, relatively easily. And
hard 40 seconds with Chad Dawson.
Yeah, again though, someone weight-wise who even actually is in the right division, but like I don't see any way to back Bika in this other than he is awkward and maybe you get some, I don't know, lucky awkward. I can't even do it. There's no way that he's competitive in this fight, is there?
It'd be upset.
Well, here's the question then.
Yeah, it'd be upset of the year. It would be a massive. It would be a pretty big upset.
The question then is, Bika's never been knocked out before. He's lost 6 times, including once to Andre Ward and once to Joe Calzaghe. Can Stevenson be the one to finally knock this guy out?
He's got the weight advantage on his side, so maybe.
Yeah,
You do know that Steven, like, this isn't like the contracted weight is they both weigh 175. It's not like Stevenson weighs 175 and he has to weigh 168.
No, but he's comfortable at that weight is the point. If you're trying to bulk up to that weight, you're not going to be able. You're not going to be able to effectively A, build the muscle, B, train your body to get used to using it. Like, there's lots of factors that go into it, and you don't just magically become comfortable just because you've put weight on.
Or magically get a better chin. Yeah,
No,
well,
I think there could be a corner stoppage. He might not go down, but I think he could just be taking way too much punishment towards the end of the fight.
let's talk
I
about the
wouldn't.
undercard. And
Yeah, I wouldn't be
Artur
surprised.
Beterbiev versus Gabriel Campillo of Spain, who's also signed with Sergio Martinez's promotion. And anytime we get to talk about Sergio Martinez, we're going to take that opportunity. So when Martinez made his HBO debut back in 2010, I'm kidding, guys. I know you guys were probably like, "Oh, what is he doing?"
No, well, at least you can at least get in that his documentary is coming out on Netflix on April 1st, so everybody check that out because
Right.
I'll be watching it this week and probably want to have to say a couple things about it on next week's episode.
In next week's episode, it's all about Sergio Martinez,
Yeah, we're just going to recap the documentary, right?
pretty much. So this is a real sturdy test for Beterbiev in that Campillo is kind of like the Sergey Kamitsky of his division. He's really awkward, doesn't do anything like the orthodox way, and yet he's very effective at what he does.
Mm.
What do you guys like Beterbiev?
Well, he's not shown us enough yet, but the early signs are, yeah, he's going to be a good one. I really like this matchup as well because Campillo's only losses come to like really stellar names, or at least elites in the division. Who's he lost to? It's like Kovalev, Fonfara. You know, Nate, you're in good company if you can get by this guy.
Beibut Shumanov, don't forget that one.
Yeah, Shumanov.
Boris Cloud, but
Cloud.
Campillo won that fight, so
Yeah.
just make sure you always say that.
Marat.
Yeah, so you're in good company if you can get by him.
Yeah,
and
he separates the wheat from the chaff. Like that's.
Yeah, and he's had what? Beterbiev has had 7 professional fights, 7 stoppages. So it's going to be one. Is he ready enough for this level of opposition? Has he? Is he a bit wet behind the ears and isn't going to hack it? You sometimes see someone you've got all the hope in the world for, but they get matched too early and end up getting derailed by someone who's a bit more of a veteran. Is that going to? Yeah, exactly. I don't think that's going to quite be on the cards, but is he going to get upset with a decision or a decision loss or something? I don't think so, but it's in the water maybe. And then the other thing is, can he get the stoppage to continue his 100% knockout ratio? So there's a lot of questions that it's going to be asking, and we'll get the answers next weekend. So I really like this matchup for that reason.
Yeah, Campillo's been stopped before too, so I don't think if you have faith in Beterbiev, you're probably going to pick him by stoppage.
Mm-hmm.
I have Beterbiev winning by a stoppage, and this is why. He fights at Sergey Kovalev's pace, and which is walk forward, throw punches, very aggressive. Campillo faced that when he fought Sergey Kovalev, and it did not go well for him. Kovalev really quickly just put too much pressure on him, and Campillo cracked under it. Now, if you don't remember that fight, Campillo had a lot of trouble getting into the country, and he had arrived only a couple of days before the fight, and he credited that with the lack of success against Kovalev, except when he fought Fonfara and got knocked out, it kind of made sense that, maybe he doesn't have a good chin. And I think this looks like a good fight on paper, but Campillo doesn't really have a chance. And I think Beterbiev is going to just steamroll him.
Yeah, I should probably walk right through him.
You guys know what time it is, right?
11:10.
It's not 10 past. Well, I mean, actually, it might be. But what time it is time to discuss our favorite fighter. Anthony Joshua is also fighting next weekend. He's going to fight none other than Jason Gavern of, where is he from, Florida?
Yeah, I think he's Floridian, isn't he?
Yep. And so,
Simon, give us the line about AJ and sparring that this guy said. That was a good line.
Yeah.
Oh, from Gavin, yeah. He said, because obviously Gavin's been sparring partner for Joshua before. And this is a last-minute fight. He's still fighting Kevin Johnson in a few weeks. So, this fight shouldn't be looked on as like, oh, why is he taking this soft fight? It's just something to keep him active, keep him in the public eye. So I don't think that you're going to expect too much from Gavin. in terms of competition. But Gavin said, like, he really hurt me during sparring, so I'm nervous as hell about this. I'm going to get my ass handed to me a bit.
Yeah.
So he's living in the real world and he understands what he's going into. But I think it's going to be a really fun fight. I love Jason Gavin for entertainment value. He won over a lot of hearts in the Prize Fighter heavyweights tournament in the Copper Box a couple of years ago, where he was just really entertaining, won the crowd over.
And Anthony Joshua was on that card too.
He was. It was his third professional fight back then. He was like a sort of halfway, entertainment fight in between that and then the finals of the tournament. But no, that was really entertaining. And it wasn't the Copper Box actually. It was York Hall, to correct myself there. But
one of my least favorite arenas.
he got the win over old James Toney there. So he's done interesting bits and pieces over the years, but it's just going to be entertaining, going to be fun, and we'll get to see AJ do his thing.
Just so you guys know about Jason Gavin, he's lost 3 of his last 4. He's been knocked out twice. He was knocked out by Deontay Wilder in 4 rounds. He was knocked out by Zhang Junlong just last November in China. So it'll be a good measurement to see how AJ does and what he does with him, and compare that to what Wilder did in 4 rounds.
When the Wilder stoppage was odd as well, wasn't it?
I can't even remember.
I can. It was like, I don't know, it was one of those awkward ones where Jason Gavin could have gone on a bit. He was going to lose. Don't have any illusions about that. But it just wasn't a nice stoppage. If you go back and watch it, you'll get that sense of like, oh, that should have gone on a bit longer, to be honest. And Gavin wanted to go on a bit longer too.
That windmill attack is really something else.
Yeah.
So now this is an important fight, though, for Joshua, only because after this, he's got Kevin Johnson. And Kevin Johnson is like the real test of Joshua's career so far. Johnson is not a guy that goes down easily. As far as I know, he's never been stopped. Yeah, he's never been stopped. He goes the distance with a lot of really good fighters that we would associate with the world level. Joshua is alive to take him out quickly. Or not quickly, but he's live to take him out. And if he does that, this is going to be Joshua's coming out party, where he's now legitimately supplanted on the world scene. Vitaly Klitschko couldn't stop Kevin Johnson, and neither could Tyson Fury.
Yeah, agreed. That will certainly be a really big deal if he's able to do that. But just on the flip side, guys, Johnson's taken a tremendous, probably taken a lot of punishment over, in those losses that he did have where he didn't get knocked out. And he's, 35 years old now, which isn't the oldest for heavyweight. But, but if he could stop him in an impressive fashion, it would probably really, really make a big splash for him.
Are you trying to pop our AJ balloon that we're blowing up right here?
Well, I'm just saying that, you got to think about it realistically too, right? Is that this is somebody who's been fighting basically like what the best of the heavyweight division has to offer, right? And that will take a lot out of you after successive fights like that. So it's just something to be considerate of.
No, I've been calling for a while. AJ's going to decisively stop him. And
Johnson.
Anyone who had any doubts or concerns that AJ's not right because he's not doing this or not doing that, they're all going to have to really think long and hard about what their opinion of him is and reassess it. Because as you say, Vitaly couldn't stop him, Chisora couldn't stop him, Fury couldn't stop him. AJ's going to stop him, and he's going to stop him probably in a middle round, and it's going to be brutal.
I agree. I completely agree with that. And let's move topics, and we're going to jump into the super flyweight division, and we're going to give it some shine, and definitely more shine than HBO and Showtime have been giving them lately. And that is to tell you that Carlos Cuadras, the super flyweight champion, is going to be fighting Luis Concepcion this coming Saturday.
Yep.
And that's it. So let's move on to the quick hits and start wrapping things up here. And I'm going to ask you guys a few questions, actually 5. and just get your quick take on those subjects. So earlier in this week, a story was published by pretty much every boxing outlet that while HBO said a long time ago that they were going to make the plunge into the cruiserweight division, and they were working with Sauerland to get some of their fighters on their network, which included cruiserweight champion Marco Huck, that never came to anything. But now we do know that Marco Huck will be making his American debut thanks to Al Heyman. What do you think of getting Marco Huck on our networks and in our country to see?
Who? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no. I think
that's the pretty typical response that a lot of people would.
For whatever reason, Huck has actually hit my radar. My radar isn't as deep as the two of you guys, but he has hit my radar. Familiar with him. Do I think it's going to be the best thing that's happened to boxing? I don't know. What is the some people, I've heard people claim, at least last year, cruiserweight is like one of the most exciting divisions that's completely overlooked.
Who told you that?
Yeah, somebody lied to you.
Yeah, because it's not, right?
No.
So why is this good for boxing? Just maybe, because we're showcasing fighters from other countries in America, like that's good. More boxing is good, but what's the end game? What's the long-term benefit of showcasing cruiserweight?
It's a good response. What do you think, Simon?
It is a difficult one because at the minute, and it's not been true always, but as of right now, the cruiserweight scene is people who couldn't hack it at light heavy and have moved up, or people that can't quite make heavyweight. It's this kind of graveyard of mismatch, and because it's got such a wide weight class, there's a couple stone in it almost that you can vary and still be in cruiserweight. It's a very awkward division that doesn't feel like it's exceptionally talent rich at the minute. If I said what is the most exciting fight that exists at cruiserweight in the last 18 months or the next 18 months, the sad answer would probably be that it was the Bellew fight of last year.
No.
I know.
No.
What outshines that at cruiser?
It's Marco Huck and Johan Pablo Hernandez. Then we could even throw Grigory Jazad in there with Marco Huck. I think those are really fascinating fights. Even Denis Lebedev. And look, I don't follow the cruiserweight division very closely. I take that back, I do. But I don't rate it as highly as everyone else. And you guys have caught me here.
Well, answer my question. Why? So, of all the divisions that you could start to showcase right now on PBC, why cruiserweight?
Has he got a prospect in that division that he's looking to build a scene for when they arrive?
A lot of them are white.
Oh, let's not go there.
Oh, okay.
This is just this is a really curious move right now, and outside of Roy Jones Jr., there isn't a cruiserweight on the American radar right now.
I mean, he's really given the fans what they want with this one.
Yeah, well, it's odd, and because of how calculated he is, there's something that we're not seeing, and it's got to be either A, someone that he owns is going to be moving up to that division from light heavy, and he wants to build a scene for them to arrive to, or that he's got a prospect who's going to hit that division and start making a splash.
I don't know about a prospect right now, but I could tell you something that maybe a lot of people don't know. I'm pretty sure that Edwin Rodriguez is moving to cruiserweight.
Huh.
Now, would Al Heyman go to that length for Edwin Rodriguez, who was thoroughly shut out by Andre Ward and really hasn't had a significant win since?
What if it's a backup plan?
If there is a backup plan?
No, what if this is the backup plan? So what if you bring in Huck and get him noticed, you put Edwin up there and get him noticed and get some stuff going on. If for whatever reason Stevenson fights Kovalev and does badly, he can run away and hide in cruiserweight afterwards.
That's a lot more long-term thinking than we're seeing other promoters do. So, I mean, good for Al Heyman. I like your logic there. Right now, though, I don't really understand how this is a beneficial move for now.
Yeah,
that's a big backup plan.
Yeah,
a lot's gotta go
it
wrong
works
for
though.
him.
It does work.
Yeah, well, not with bringing one fight
Actually,
on.
let me ask one
Yeah.
question though. The thing I just thought of right now is, if Stevenson loses to Kovalev, can you sell Stevenson anymore?
Yeah, absolutely.
You think so?
Yeah, why not? Because Kovalev, he's just that level of excellence. Let me say this: if for some reason GGG went at it with Cotto and destroyed him, do you think that Cotto fans wouldn't want to see him anymore, or do you think they'd quite happily see him go back down to light middle and start doing stuff again?
Well,
Well,
they'd
you've got
probably
a
like him
whole
to stay retired
nationalistic,
after that.
yeah, you got a whole nationalistic identity behind Kodo, where that's a little tough to, do
Yeah,
that.
I get that it's not a like for like comparison, but all I'm saying
Yeah.
is Stevenson is a draw, and he's not going to stop being a draw because of one loss. And I know that we've got a lot of emphasis these days on protecting your own, and that
Well, he's already got a loss.
Yeah,
so,
he's got his loss, but in
and
terms
he's
of
already
we're in this
super
culture,
popular. Right.
yeah, where you have one loss and you're irrelevant. But
Right.
I don't think that'll be a problem for him because he's already he's already reached escape velocity and got left orbit, if that makes sense. I think that he's already out there as a known staple name.
Yeah, if he
Who
takes
would've-
a loss, all it means is it's a setback. He has to take a couple comeback fights, and then he's back on the world stage.
Yeah.
Guys, who would have thought that we would have spent over 5 minutes talking about the cruiserweight division? I don't know. Somehow we did it. We should get a
But
prize
lot
for
of
that.
some of it was spent on Stevenson and Kovalev.
Okay, but that was only like 2 minutes. I'm serious. I'm
Okay.
looking at the clock here.
Okay.
All right, somebody's gonna send me a message later on who actually timed that and call me a liar. I bet. I'm not lying. So next question, we have Lucas Matisse and Ruslan Provodnikov coming up in a few weeks. So, but I think we should start getting the hype train rolling now. And really, it doesn't need it, but let's do it anyway. So my question for you guys is, who did it better, Danny Garcia or Chris Algieri?
Oh, that's a really well thought out question, Angela. Because
Thank you.
I think that's a really well thought out question because I think a case could actually be made for either.
Whoever is going to support Algieri, you go first.
Okay, I'll
no
go
one?
first.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
no,
right,
I'll go.
okay.
I'll take it. I'm a glutton for punishment. So the thing that I would say about Algeria is, granted he took some punishment in the first round, he did make the necessary adjustments to successfully keep Provodnikov at bay.
And fight with a broken face too.
Yep, and with one eye for the last couple rounds. He didn't go down again. He felt the power. It was rough for him. He had the rough spot, but he made it through. Whereas I feel like there were a lot more moments in the Garcia-Matisse fight where, Garcia was getting, touched cleanly, or they were looking for his mouth guard in the 20th row somewhere.
Well, let me ask you this question about Algieri. Do you think after the first round he really tasted Provodnikov's power? I don't think the
Again?
answer is yes.
You mean again after the first round?
Yeah, I don't think
because every
Provodnikov even
punch-
hit him cleanly after that.
Everything was glancing blows. You're right. He was taking the sting off of all the punches.
And I'll give Algieri a ton of credit for making the defensive adjustments that he made in that fight and then staying busy. I mean, the fitness that he displayed was ridiculous. Now, I'm going to side with Garcia, though. And like you said, they found Garcia's mouthpiece in the 20th row, which means that Garcia took everything Matisse had to offer and one-upped him every step of the way, if not more than one up when he dropped Matisse later in the fight.
Right, but the point of the conversation isn't, is Algieri better than Garcia?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Get your point back on track, because I agree, Danny Garcia is better than Chris Algieri.
Simon, you were going to support Garcia too, right? So why don't you jump in?
I think there's a lot to say. Ultimately, we're using this as a measuring stick for the upcoming clash with Provodnikov and Matisse. And I think that even having a debate of who did it better, Algieri hasn't done a hell of a lot at light welter. Garcia has done a hell of a lot at light welter. He's the obvious A-side, top tier talent. And for us to be saying, how did Garcia look versus how did Chris Algieri look, and coming up with sort of similar answers must mean that Matisse is far better than Provodnikov. If Provodnikov fought Garcia and Matisse had fought Algieri, how do you think those two would have gone? I have a feeling that Provodnikov would have lost worse to Garcia than he did to Algieri, and that Algieri would have had a tougher day's work against Matisse and possibly even loses.
That's a fair point. And I think also, just from what I've seen, Matisse is known for he's willing to be flexible with how he fights. Whereas we clearly saw in the Algieri fight that Provodnikov was unwilling to try something different than what was already not working. And we saw Matisse try a few different things in the Garcia fight. And Garcia adjusted each step of the way and was still able to be successful. Now, and I know there are several people out there who aren't fans of Danny Garcia who are about to call us up and say, hey guys, what about all those low blows and stuff? I got no answer for you.
I do. You know, you're a professional boxer and there's a dirty element involved. And sometimes you've got to know how to deal with someone that's playing a bit dirty, that, you know, is employing some bad tactics. And so, you know, the referee can only do their best. And sometimes you get stuck with a bad one. You've got to learn how to deal with that and get on. You know, it's the highest level of competition. There's no excuses. I don't want to hear about whether your opponent spit their mouth guard out to buy himself some time when they were in trouble. Or, you know, there's a whole cavalcade of dirty tricks that come out. And as a professional, it's your job to shut those down and make sure they don't get away with it or get the benefit of them.
And speaking specifically to the low blow aspect, and if the ref's not noticing them, or they're doing it in a way that is being hidden, you got to do it back. Yeah, you hit them back. You give them one right back. If it's something that's going on, that's part of boxing.
Or squeal to the ref harder, because it's your job to make the fight work the way you need it to.
Ring generalship via squealing.
Yeah, it's true though. You see it all the time.
No,
Mayweather's
you do.
Mayweather's prime example of that. When he felt he had his hand bitten by Maidana. He made the effort to go and have a discussion with the ref about it. He's biting my hand. He's telling him how it is, rather than just hoping that he takes notice of it. He goes and makes an issue of it.
You got to throw your gloves over your head, exasperated, right?
Yeah.
I want to point out one thing, guys, about this fight. And about the Provodnikov fans out there, what they might say about Algieri. And the likely thing they'll say about Algieri is that, he ran the whole time. And this is a shout out to one of the users on Reddit Boxing. His username is Payweather. And he said in the last night's thread about Gonzalez and Gary Russell Jr., he says, he ran is equal to, I don't know how to cut off the ring. Meaning people who say or accuse another fighter of running like Martirosyan did. What they're really saying is, I don't know how to cut off the ring. I made it a point when I put this rundown together to say that, and that seemed like a good time to put that in there, because Provodnikov did not cut off the ring.
No,
you don't hear anybody ever. You don't hear any complaints about any of the guys that fight Golovkin or Kovalev or Gonzalez where they say, well, he ran the whole fight. No, these guys know how to cut off the ring, and they do not allow running.
Nothing else needs to be said on that.
So now, and we're going to stay on Chris Algieri. The next question is, there's a rumor that Amir Khan is going to be fighting Chris Algieri. And Chris Algieri now has John David Jackson in his corner, the same guy who trained Sergey Kovalev. Now, my question to you guys, since you guys are both Khan fans, is this the direction that Khan should be going right now?
Khan doesn't necessarily have a world of high level options available to him. He wants things that aren't going to happen. I think it's not the best move, but it's not the worst. Algieri could be pretty tricky for him though.
I think it's the best move. I think it's very clever matchmaking if it is happening. So, how much danger does Algieri present Khan with?
Where I'm at with this fight is that I don't think Algieri provides much of a threat to Khan. I think Algieri doesn't move his head enough. And he has really good movement, but so does Khan. And I think Khan is quick enough to catch Algieri a lot of times, and then they're going to come together and do the whole clinch thing. I think a Khan versus Algieri fight was going to almost look like a Klitschko fight, and Khan is going to be Klitschko.
But what does a win over Chris Algieri do for Khan?
It keeps
looks
him relevant.
really good to
Keeps him
negotiate
relevant.
with Pacquiao if he can somehow.
To negotiate with Pacquiao.
Actually, you know what? It doesn't look good at all.
I think it does. It's a measuring stick. So if he can stop Algieri, then he can say to Pacquiao, you couldn't get rid of this guy. I did.
He's not stopping Algieri. Get out of here.
I don't think he is either. But Khan, that's one thing that he's looking for, and he'll be trying to do that, whether it's going to happen or not. But Algieri's not going to knock out Khan, is he? He's not going to trouble him because he doesn't have the power to do so.
It's not a threatening fight from a power perspective. But.
Yeah, and if Khan wants to build a steady reputation at welterweight, he needs to fight people that don't belong at welterweight either, like Algieri.
And ones that don't have power.
Yeah. Right. It's a dream fight for Khan because it can be at welter against someone who's not a real welter, who's not going to hurt you, but is massively in the public consciousness. People are very aware of who Algieri is at the minute. He's just fought Pacquiao, so that's like, this is a top-tier credible opponent to the masses. That's a great fight for Khan in terms of reputation. What else is he going to do on the world stage that's even nearly as productive as that?
Well, he could... I think the way you should say that, or at least how I'm going to interpret that question is there anything else that Khan could do on the world stage that poses less risk for the reward that he's going to get? Because I think certainly a fight with
Brandon
Thurman,
Rios poses less risk.
Brandon Rios, I don't know much about Marquez. I don't really think Marquez has a shot against Khan. But those are the fights that are a little more dangerous, and they pose just the same, if not better, reward than beating Algieri.
Yeah,
I'd say get him in with Porter, get him in again with Maidana.
It's Maidana.
Okay, Monaco. Get him in again. Get him in again with Maidana. I think that would do wonders for him right now.
Because Maidana would win, right?
No, I don't know. I'm not.
No, seriously, I'm asking you. Do you really think that Khan gets past Maidana this time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he could. Yeah, Maidana, for everything everybody wants to say, he's still a limited slugger, even though he gave Floyd 4 good rounds and showed that he does have a jab. He's beatable.
Yeah, I think though with Algieri, he's young, single, and hasn't got anything better to do.
So is he trying to ask him out?
Well, there's no real barrier to negotiation in terms of price, in terms of what else is he going to do. People like Maidana are looking for massive paydays and are going to be looking for a big split and a big stage that's going to appeal to them. Algieri will come do that more than any of the other guys you've listed. You can just phone him up and he's probably going to be on that.
But for so essentially what you're describing is like a stay busy fight, keep him in the public consciousness, keep him, people talking about him, right?
Exactly.
Algieri is kind of a tricky style, Algieri could kind of be a little bit of a tricky fight if that's all you're trying to do.
If you're Khan, you're at this point where you can't not take this risk. You can't take any safe fights where there's just no threat because Khan wants the big fight and he needs as much momentum as he can get. And just for the record, because I didn't say it, I wasn't saying that Maidana beats Khan. What I'm saying is that it's a tricky fight and a dangerous fight for Khan. Let's jump off of this topic though, because we talk about Khan every single episode. This is mostly a question for Simon. Sorry, Jason. So Mayweather Pacquiao got announced for pay-per-view. Sky box office is going to show up for about 25 quids in HD. Is this justified? Given that it's going to air at 3 or 4 a.m., is it justified?
Yeah, I reckon so. So I think it's $19.95 if I'm not mistaken.
I looked at the website and Sky has 2 prices listed, and one is $19.95 and the other one is $24.95. So I'm guessing this is the HD SD price.
No, I've never seen them do that for pay-per-view boxing. I might have missed it.
Welcome to
I might
America.
not know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, welcome to America.
There's only been 4 pay-per-view fights Sky have done in the last 3 or 4 years. I don't remember any of them having an HD SD malarkey. It was just one price for access.
If Sky's buying the feed from an American distributor and that's how they do it here, that could easily be what it is.
Yeah, that's very possible, I guess. So I mean. the thing you have to remember with the way that Sky's platform works is that what I imagine a lot of people will do is purchase the fight, record it, and watch it. I know that this is what my parents will do, is record it, purchase it, and then they'll wake up, not watch the news, not use any internet, and they'll just sit down and watch it at like 8 a.m. while they're having breakfast, as if it were live for them. And I think that a lot of people will do that aren't going to stay up. But on the flip side, because it is such an iconic fight, I know I've got, colleagues and people I work with and friends that don't normally make the effort for boxing. Are like, I am going to, go to a party, I'm going to be at a casino, and they've got these plans for how they're going to stay up and watch the fight live. So there is certainly money in it, and I was fairly confident that Sky would take it and make it a box office thing, which is, obviously what's happened. So Justified is a difficult one because what is justified and what isn't. But all I know is that if they can charge for Bellew Cleverly too, they can certainly charge for Mayweather Pacquiao, even though it's late at night.
Yeah, but did people buy that?
I think a couple of people did, yeah.
We should
All
ask
of
Kern
Wembley
for the
Stadium.
numbers. All right, guys. Last question. Where does Shannon Briggs go next?
I think the very obvious answer, Razor Ruddock.
Oh, what? What year is this?
Yeah, exactly.
No, seriously, what year is this? Like, where is your time machine?
He had his first professional fight in 14 years last night.
And how did it go? Did you watch it?
He got. I don't think it was even televised, but he got the stoppage.
What, he hit the guy with the hammer?
It was a short uppercut, did it?
The guy is 51 years old.
I know.
The guy that he was fighting was like 40.
It's a great spectacle, though, because these
What
are
is
both...
there, an old-timers division now?
That's it. This is... It would be the eliminator for, like, who has to go to the retirement home and who gets to continue their campaign of absurdity for a big payday.
We should start a tournament.
There's
We could put
only
Ruddock
one...
in there. We could put... Who else is over the age of 40 to 45 that we can put in this tournament?
Roy Jones Jr., Bernard Hopkins...
No, there's got to be heavyweights.
Oh, it's exclusively heavyweights. Audley Harrison heard about this tournament and retired last week. So can't include him.
James Toney?
James Toney's game, yeah, of course.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we should put Michael Sprott in there.
What, for giggles, for grins.
All probably everybody who listens was just said, "Who's Michael Sprott?" Wow, this is I really thought your answer would be wherever Vladimir Klitschko goes. So probably New York City, Gleason's gym.
He's gonna be there. You know he is. He's gonna be there for some "Let's Go" champing. But
do you think he will chant "Let's Go, champ" during the fight?
Yes.
Do you think people will jump on and like just assume that that's now the new Klitschko chant?
I think there's a very high possibility.
Yeah, he'll be ringside and they'll keep panning to him.
Do you think that HBO should just tell Roy Jones to take the weekend off and actually put Briggs on the telecast?
Could you?
It would be hilarious. I would love that.
Could you? I would buy it as a pay-per-view.
But you wouldn't buy Cleverly Bellew too.
No, I'd pay double for Cleverly Bellew too. It's the second one. You got to pay double.
But yeah, Briggs is a tough one because he's not looked terrible in his fights, but he is only fighting journeyman in nowhere locations. So do you want to go and put him against someone credible in the higher end of the division? Because I think he's just going to
a guy whose nickname is Mount Kilimanjaro.
I think the only reason that he picked that opponent, Mount Kilimanjaro, was to send a message to K2.
and what message might that be?
Let's go, champ. But no, I've not been compelled to watch any of his recent comeback fights.
Mount
Briggs,
Kilimanjaro?
that is. No, Shannon Briggs. You would, for novelty factor alone, you'd watch Briggs go at Ruddock, wouldn't you?
I think
I would.
Yeah, I think you'd have to.
I
haven't seen any.
Aren't we going to watch the Kimbo Slice Ken Shamrock fight?
No,
Are we gluttons for that kind of entertainment?
My answer was a kind of joke, but really, people would watch it for novelty's sake, and it's the safest, most relevant biggest attraction fight he can probably get right now, so it's probably not a bad shout.
Otherwise, he's going to be in with somebody way over his head.
Who's going to whoop him, yeah.
Who's going to really hurt him, or he's going to just be picking on Journeyman.
I wouldn't watch this fight, actually.
Yes, you would.
Oh, please.
I'm just kidding. I'd write a viewing guide for it.
You read a viewing?
You watch the who was that old boy that came out last year for a novelty fight?
Yeah.
Against the Russian.
No, let's not do this.
Yeah, you watched that, didn't you?
Which one? I watched that whole prize fighter tournament that we were talking about
his
earlier.
name escapes me. American celebrity who came out of retirement
Mickey
to do a
Rourke.
fight. Mickey Rourke. You watched the Rourke fight. I know you did. And you would watch this one. And if you say anything else...
I was up at like 4 a.m. watching that card, and it took forever.
I know you were. And you would watch this for the same reasons.
All right, guys. So if you're listening at home and you're wondering, these guys don't talk about Mayweather versus Pacquiao enough, your time is coming. We will eventually spend an entire podcast talking about that fight. And just an announcement as far as those of you who are avid followers on Reddit Boxing, this week, and by this week I mean probably by the time you get this, there will be a viewing guide posted for Mayweather versus Pacquiao with a ton of information. Just an announcement for this week for those of you who are followers on Reddit Boxing. This week we have a previewing guide come out that I've written, and basically what this is answering a lot of the questions that haven't been answered before, and specifically also answering all of the questions that you would have logistically about the fight. And I really looked from, what hasn't been said yet. So yeah, there's the pay-per-view times and where you can watch it depending on where you live, but also some other cool things that I don't want to give away until you view it. So it should be up by the time you get this podcast in however you listen. And thanks for listening. We'll be back next week, and we're going to record immediately after Stevenson versus Bika.
I just got to throw in my last-minute prediction here, which is that Stevenson will hit the deck, but he will return to be the first person to stop Bika.
He'll go down and rise again after 3 rounds and come back.
And you guys are going to get the most hyped-up podcast you've ever heard, as Jason and I are excited that we were right about Bika being competitive, and Simon, it'll be a reverse of this week because Simon will be eating all of the crow that he can, because he does not give Bika a single chance. But Stevenson will rise again. Thanks for listening.